Hello and welcome to Tom Wainwright Reads Books, where today I'm doing my first book review here on the channel. I'm excited about this. This will be quite brief because this is a non-spoiler review. I hope just to hype you up enough to read this book, or maybe not read this book if I despised it. But I didn't despise it. Spoiler. I didn't. I loved it. This is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. And this is not the first Maggie O'Farrell book that I've read. I've read two of her earlier works, After You'd Gone and The Hand That First Held Mine. After You'd Gone is my wife's favourite book of all time. And so I read it and it, oh my word. Both of those books deal with grief. And when I got recommended to read this by Laura, she said, be prepared for more grief. Oh my word. Hamnet is the story of a family from Warwickshire in the late 1500s. And, you know, you could read this when you read the back of the blurb, read the back of the book. It's William Shakespeare's family. And I thought this book was going to be about him and about how he deals with grief. And famously, he had a son called Hamnet who dies. And I thought this was going to be that story. And it kind of is. But it's really just about a family. And it's about his wife, Anne Shakespeare. And I love this book for those reasons. I think Maggie O'Farrell, she was saying in an interview ages ago, because this book came out about 5 years ago, I think she was saying that whenever she was learning about Shakespeare, there's always this thing, there's a footnote just going, oh, Shakespeare's son died when he was very young of the plague. And there's no story about how Anne dealt with it. There's no story, so the footnotes just never really mentioned how Anne dealt with that and what her life was like. And this book is sort of a reimagining, a retelling of what could have been. It has many different perspectives, this book. It is seen through the eyes of William, of his wife Anne and their three children, Susanna, then you had Hamnet and Judith, who are twins, the younger twins. And you get such a rich, vivid world. You really know what it's like, what the countryside is like in Warwickshire and Stratford itself. You get a really good idea of what that world is. The writing is just beautiful. Also, actually, the book itself is beautiful. This is the UK hardcover edition, by the way. And the font, it's so big and nice. It's so nice. And that's maybe a thing I'm caring more about as I get older, the size of font in books. Because there's one book, A Will of the Many, this by James Islington, which is a big YouTube recommendation at the moment. The font here is tiny. That's really stressing me out. So the font size is good. That's one comment I have about this book. The first thing to say is that this is not the book I thought it was. It's the story of a family and how they deal with grief. There are some twists and turns in this book that I wasn't expecting. And the ending. I can't tell you anything about the ending, but I will say it is the best ending of a book that I've ever read. And the way Maggie O'Farrell managed to weave this tapestry all together, it was very special. And I was reminded of something as I was approaching those last few pages. No spoilers. This is not written in verse. This is very colloquial, the way it's written. All the characters speak very colloquially. However, I was reminded of something, and because I'm an actor, and when I went to drama school, when you're studying Shakespeare for the first time, one of the first tools that you work with is iambic pentameter. And the iambic pentameter is essentially, when you're looking at Shakespearean verse, it's the beats or the rhythm of the line. And there's 5 unstressed beats and there's 5 stressed beats. And that makes there's sort of 10 beats, as it were, altogether. And it sounds a bit like this. Di-dum, 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 di-dum. And when a line fits in that pentameter, it flows so smoothly. And in fact, if an actor is using that, or at least has a hint of it in the back of their head, audiences just lean in and listen. They listen to the poetry or the heartbeat of the line. And like a famous one from his sonnets is, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? That's perfect. That is, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? And it's just the most perfect line. But then if you look at another line in Hamlet, for example, probably the most famous line in all of Western literature, to be or not to be, that is the question. And many actors, have different ways of where they put the operative word, but they focus on that line. But if you just look at it in a script, to be or not to be, that is the question. So the chun, the final syllable, is outside of the pentameter, which is a useful tool for the actor to perhaps go, well, maybe that question, should I live or not? To focus on that word, the question. You don't have to, but it breaks the pentameter. And even though this book is not written in verse, I could hear my own heartbeat, and the heartbeat is so similar to that pentameter. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. And even though this isn't written in verse, that final page, the final line, it broke that internal pentameter. It broke my heart, which is quite profound. But honestly, it did. And I sat there. Crying. I suppose trigger warnings are a thing that people do here on YouTube. So, grief-wise, this is pretty heavy. So do be a little bit careful. But please read this book. It's also beautiful. And there's also great hope in it as well. Nobody writes grief like Maggie O'Farrell. And I think it's something we all have to deal with. And this has made me a better person, this book, as well. And I think that's pretty special when a book can do that, when you feel like you've grown as a human being after you've read it, and you just feel more empathetic towards others and what they could be going through. And I think that's magic. So that's all I'm going to say on this little video. This is more of a hype video. To give it a rating, it's a 5 out of 5. And I just did my top 10 books of all time. And I had finished that morning when I made that video, I'd finished The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wong. And I put that in my top 10, also because of how she dealt with grief, and also it's a very cool fantasy world as well. This will also be going in my next top 10 books of all time. It's amazing. I absolutely adore it. So highly recommend. If you read it and you enjoyed it, please let me know. If you didn't enjoy it, also let me know. Keep it spoiler free in the comments as well. And it would mean so much if you liked, subscribed and left a comment. Honestly, it really would do. It's so fun. I get a massive dopamine hit when people leave a comment and leave a like. So please do. But that's all for now. And thank you very much. I'm currently reading Stephen King's It, because I just needed a break from grief. And then I stupidly realised as I started reading this book that this was going to be quite traumatic as well. So I'm rather scared at the moment. And when I started reading It, I was like, okay, we're introduced to what is scary quite early on in the book. And I was like, that's not that scary. And how wrong I was. I kind of forgot that Stephen King is the master of horror, the king of horror. And honestly, when it gets late and it gets dark, I'm in the flat, even if Laura's here, I'm getting a bit jumpy. So yeah, I'm reading that. I'll do a little review for that. But next up, I'll probably do a review of The Sword of Kaigan as well. I'm quite new to all this. So if there's anything you'd rather I chatted about, or things you'd like to know in a non-spoilery way about this book, to convince you to read it, let me know. Genuinely, that would be so helpful. So thank you so much and have a great day.